I made this sign using a trick I wish I knew years ago. No Cricut, no printer magic, just this stuff right here. And it's cheap and easy, and seriously, it looks like it was bought at the store. So let me show you how to do it. Let's dive right into how to do a graphic transfer with polycrylic sealer. The first thing you'll need is a piece of scrap wood. I dug through my stash and I found this beautiful piece of pine that was actually given to me for free, and it's going to be perfect for turning it into a coffee sign. Next, you'll need some sticker or label sheets, and what we're after is that shiny, slick backing paper. These were price tag dots that I had already used, so I just peeled off the leftover grid. I'm going to save that for some junk journaling projects. What we're left with is this glossy paper, and that's exactly what we need for this transfer technique. I thought this piece of pine would look amazing as a coffee sign for above my coffee bar, so I jumped onto my computer and dropped this graphic into Google Docs. Now, this part is super important. Make sure your graphic is reversed. Mine is flipped, as you can see, because if you don't mirror it, the wording will transfer backwards, and that's not the look we're going for. We don't want coffee saying backwards. If you're not sure how to reverse a graphic, don't worry, I got a full tutorial on how to do it. You can click this QR code here, or you can check the link in the description after you've watched this video. And this exact design is available in my Etsy shop, or you can also get it as a Graphic Club member right away for free in our library. Once I had the graphic in Google Docs, I sized it to fit the pine board perfectly, and after making sure it was the right size, I printed it out using my laser printer. And here's a quick tip. This will not work, unfortunately, with an inkjet printer. You need to have a laser printer because we want that toner for the transfer to work. Once I had everything printed in Google Docs, making sure it was reversed and sized just right, we're ready to cut it down for that pine board. I trimmed up all the letters so they were all the same size, which helps keep everything neat. And here's another important tip. Be careful not to touch that toner on the glossy paper. If you do, it's going to rub off, so take your time when handling the graphics to avoid smudging. And now is a great time. If you're enjoying this process or you love graphic transfers, don't forget to hit that button and subscribe so you're not going to miss any future DIY projects. Once I had all the letters cut and arranged on the board, I knew exactly how big I needed the piece to be. So I'm now going to cut that pine down to size. I'm using my square to measure and get a straight line. Then I'm going to grab my jigsaw to make the cuts. I'm really lucky. I always ask my friends and family to save any scrap wood they have, and this piece was actually given to me. If you've priced lumber lately, you know it's pricey. So I did a little happy dance when I got this beautiful piece of pine for free. I just knew that I could turn it into something beautiful, and a coffee bar sign was something exactly that I visioned. What I love about this graphic transfer technique compared to the Mod Podge method I normally use is that you don't have to rub off any paper. It can be really tough on your fingers and really time consuming, and if you have arthritis in your fingers, it can be really hard on them too. This technique works just as well, but with less mess, and it gives you that nice crisp transfer every time, and all you need is some polycrylic sealer. I wanted this piece of pine to have a little bit more character, so I'm grabbing my hammer and a screwdriver and a pair of pliers just to distress that wood a little, and I'm just going to notch it up here and there to give it that worn, aged look so it doesn't feel like a plain piece of pine you've just grabbed off the shelf at a big box store. You can even take a small knife and chip away at the edges, focusing on those spots where the wood would have naturally kind of wore over time. These little details really bring your sign to life, and if you're reselling pieces like this, trust me, signs with this kind of character tend to sell much better. It's all about those extra touches. Now it's time to create a DIY stain for the base of this sign. I was going for a nice warm brown, but when I checked my acrylic paint stash, I realized I didn't have any brown, and not sure how that happened. So until I get to the dollar store to grab some more, I got creative. I mixed some pink and green from the color wheel, and I ended up with this brownish tone. Wasn't really happy with it, so I added a touch of black to deepen it, and it turned out pretty close to what I was going for. I mixed a bit of water into it to thin it out into more of a stain consistency, and this is a really affordable way to make custom stains in any color you want without spending a fortune. I'm going to apply it with a sponge, wiping it across that entire board, and you'll see wherever there was any distress, that wood stain is really going to soak in and highlight those notches, and it gives it such a beautiful aged vintage look. Felt like it needed a second coat to darken things up a bit, so I mixed in a little bit more black and I added some extra water and brushed it over that first layer, and it's really starting to be a really beautiful base for that sign. The best part about this is you can totally customize this with red, green, whatever you've got in your acrylic paint stash. Just experiment with it and have fun. And like I mentioned earlier, this transfer technique is such a win. You're not rubbing off paper or stressing about any patchy results, which can sometimes happen with that Mod Podge transfer. I love this, and it's been my go-to transfer method for quite a while. Since this is such a large sign with multiple graphic pieces, it's important to keep everything lined up. So after I cut out all of the letters, I use some painter's tape to hold them together. This way they're not going to shift around during that transfer process, and everything will stay nice and straight. And before I moved on, I grabbed my sander and I lightly distressed around the edges to smooth everything out. And then I gave the board a good clean to remove any dust. And now it's time to grab that polycrylic sealer. I'm going to be using a semi-gloss, and we're going to brush on a nice even coat over that entire surface. This is the secret sauce that makes that transfer technique work. You want to make sure you're applying a generous, even coat. Don't be shy with it. I'm starting with this initial layer, making sure the entire surface is fully covered so that transfer sticks properly and comes out crisp. Now we're going to pick up our transfer and we're going to center it into that wet polycrylic sealer, making sure it's exactly where we want it and pressing it down firmly. I find a brayer works really great for this step, making sure that you're pressing that toner right into that labeled paper. And remember, when you're printing, we're going to go back to that. When you're printing, print on that shiny side of the paper. If you're printing on the other side, it's going to adhere to it and it's not going to transfer. So that's really important. If you're finding you're squishing out some of that polycrylic sealer, you can just take your paintbrush and you can just make sure that it's blended in. And I keep going over that probably for a minute or two with the brayer, getting any bubbles, any wrinkles, making sure it's nice and smooth. Now comes the magic. I let the polycrylic dry completely, probably for about 4 or 5 hours. It will depend on your weather and your humidity. And then it's time for the big reveal. As I'm peeling off that label paper, you can see the toner has bonded beautifully to that sealer. And the result is a crisp, bold transfer that's really hard to achieve with that traditional Mod Podge method. No rubbing, no mess, just a clean peel and a stunning design right on the wood. If you notice a little bit of paper residue left behind, no worries, just dampen a cloth and you can gently rub over the area. It'll lift right off without damaging your transfer. You can see in a few spots where it didn't quite take, probably because of those notches and dings in the wood, but honestly, that's the exact look that I'm going for. I always like to go in with my sander afterwards and distress it a bit more. It softens that shine and it really enhances that aged vintage feel. I'm using an 80 grit sandpaper and I'm just gently roughening it up. To finish it off, I'm adding one more coat of that polycrylic sealer right over top of the sign. This locks in everything and gives it that nice durable finish. That way, since it's going in the kitchen, I can dust it or I can even wipe it down with a damp cloth if I need to. It's protected and it's ready to hang. I have the perfect spot for this sign. I thrifted this cabinet and I upcycled it. I have a full tutorial on the start to finish process of this and the transformation is beautiful. But I think the sign is going to look fantastic up above. I hope you enjoyed today's polycrylic graphic transfer method and it inspired you to create one of these signs yourself. And if you're curious how I styled it in my space, be sure to check out this full coffee bar makeover right here that I picked up at the thrift store. Take care, and I'm going to see you in the next video.